Now listen here, the Texas sun's gone down, but don't go thinking you're safe just yet. Round these parts, when the heat dies off, that's when they start moving. Shadows stretch longer. Voices start carrying on the wind, and things that ain't right come crawling out of places we don't talk about in the daylight. These ain't no campfire yarns. These here are real. Real as the dirt under your boots, and they're looking for someone just like you. But before we dive off into the dark, let me tell you something strange. Most folks, they make one big ol' mistake. They leave without subscribing, and when they do, they miss out on the creepiest bone-chilling tales this side of the Pecos. Stories only the brave stick around to hear. Don't be one of them. Smash that subscribe button right now, 'cause tonight's just warming up, and the terror hiding out there in the dark, it ain't going nowhere, so tell me something. Where y'all watching from? And what time is it where you are? Drop it in the comments below, 'cause the night, she's just getting started, and we're about to open the door to something real bad. Now grab your light, lock your doors, and follow me into the dark. Let's see what's waiting. Kenny Bragg didn't believe in ghosts. Not the kind that rattled chains or wailed through the piney woods. But loss, that haunted you plenty. Loss changed a man. It shifted things inside, made the corners of his mind feel like unlit attics, full of creaks and unseen shapes you'd rather not name. And that night, the road home from Marble Falls felt exactly like that. Dark, empty, and just wide enough for Grief to sit beside him in the passenger seat. Billy had been gone 4 days. Kenny had buried his little brother that morning under a sun so brutal it burned the casket handles to a shine. The cancer hit Billy like a hammer to the chest. 38 years old and gone before spring even gave a damn. There hadn't been enough people at the funeral. A few co-workers, some cousins who barely spoke. No wife, no kids. Kenny had always figured there'd be more. Hell, he figured he would have gone first. That was the order of things. Big brothers don't bury little ones. It felt wrong, like rearranging the laws of gravity. He left late, ignoring his nephew's offer to stay the night. Said he needed the drive, said he needed the time. Truth was, he just needed to be alone. It was past 11 when the gas light blinked on, that little orange whisper, "Hey, dummy, you're running out." Kenny swore and tapped the gauge as if persuasion might change the reading. It didn't. He hadn't filled up before the funeral. Another damn thing he forgot. He checked the rearview mirror. Just his tired face, sweaty collar, and the silhouette of his Stetson on the dash. He rolled down the window. Warm wind, thick with dust and the fading perfume of wildflowers. Texas in summer always smelled like something trying to die. He slowed at a bend where 2 country roads forked off in different directions. That's when he saw it. The sign wasn't lit. It just stood there, slightly tilted, half buried in creeping Johnson grass. The paint was almost gone, but he could make out the words. Witt's Filling Station. Gas, cold drinks, rest. No arrows, no lights, no explanation for how a gas station could be out here in the middle of cow fields and dry fences. He hadn't seen it on the way up that morning. He would have remembered. Still, low on gas and high on curiosity, he took the turn. The road wasn't paved so much as remembered. The asphalt was cracked open like sun-baked clay and weeds pushed up between the fractures. A couple 100 feet in, the landscape opened, and there it was. A single-story, flat-roofed building with peeling stucco, buzzing lights, and a gas island that looked like it had been assembled from rust and prayer. There were 2 pumps, old-school analog things with iron hoses and no digital screens. A neon sign above the station pulsed open, in that sickly green color you only ever saw in dreams or emergency rooms. No brand name, no hours posted. Kenny pulled up and stopped beside pump No. 2. There was something wrong with the air. It wasn't the heat. It was still hot, but now the air felt thick, almost gelatinous, like breathing underwater. The silence was too pure. No frogs, no wind, no cicadas, just the buzz of the neon and the thudding of his own pulse behind his eyes. He climbed out and stretched, leaving the engine running. He looked around. No cars in the lot. No sign of another soul. The windows of the shop were dusty, but one was lit from within. Then the bell rang, the kind of tinny little bell that swings above a door when someone walks in or out. Only he hadn't seen the door open, hadn't seen anyone move, but suddenly there was a man standing behind the counter. He was tall and bony, dressed in an old-fashioned uniform, gray shirt with a dark collar, matching slacks, a black apron with the name Wit stitched above the breast. The name meant nothing to Kenny, but he suddenly realized the man wasn't just behind the counter. He was watching, eyes fixed, like Kenny had stepped into a movie already halfway through. The pump clicked, a sound like a camera shutter. Kenny turned. The nozzle was already in his tank, though he hadn't touched it. The numbers on the dial were moving. He looked back toward the window. The man nodded once, very slowly. Kenny walked inside. It was like stepping into another time. The interior smelled like dust and plastic, but also like something sour and ancient, like a place that had been waiting for too long. The fridge buzzed in the back, its contents unrecognizable through the dirty glass. The candy rack was full of brands Kenny hadn't seen in decades. Zagnut, Bar None, Marathon. No prices. No receipts. The ceiling fan spun overhead, even though there was no visible power cord. He approached the counter. "How much?" Kenny asked, reaching for his wallet. The man tilted his head slightly. "Paid in advance," he said in a voice that sounded like gravel poured through a pipe. "I didn't." Kenny stopped. His wallet wasn't in his pocket. He patted his jeans, checked his coat. Gone. But the man didn't seem to notice. He reached beneath the counter and placed something on the glass. A single silver coin. It was the size of a $50. Cold to the touch, and so polished it gleamed even in the dim light. On one side, a skull with 3 eyes. On the other, a star with 11 points, jagged like broken teeth. Kenny picked it up and felt a jolt. Like static, a chill ran through his shoulder, down his spine, and into the pit of his stomach. "What is this?" he asked. The man only smiled. Kenny turned to leave. When he reached the door and looked back, the man was gone. No footsteps, no movement, just an empty store and a faint echo in his ears that might have been laughter or wind. He stepped outside. The gas pump was back in place. The numbers had stopped. Due point. He blinked. Back in the truck, Kenny sat for a moment, staring into the coin resting in his palm. He looked up into the rearview mirror. The station was gone. Not dark. Gone. The road behind him stretched out into weeds and dust. No building, no lights, no signs. He drove home in silence, his chest tight. He didn't sleep that night. The dreams came. Dry wind through his brother's casket, 3-eyed skulls etched into the walls of his childhood bedroom, whispers, in a language he didn't know but understood anyway. By the next morning, he couldn't remember the name of his first pet. By lunch, he forgot how to unlock his phone. A week later, he stood in his own kitchen and couldn't remember where he kept the forks. Doctors ran tests. Early onset dementia, they said. Unusual for someone his age, but not impossible. Stress, maybe. Trauma. But Kenny knew. He started keeping a journal, writing everything down twice. Names, dates, details of the coin, how it felt heavier on some days, how it made him dream of sandstorms and voices calling his name from across endless fields of glass. Then, one night, almost 6 months later, the coin disappeared from his drawer. And that same night, on a police scanner out of Burnett County, a deputy reported an old gas station appearing off an unmarked road, exactly at midnight. The transmission ended with static. They never found the deputy. Kenny Bragg doesn't leave the house now. His memories come in flashes. A name here, a sound there. But always, he remembers the gas station. He remembers the way it looked at him. And sometimes when the night is quiet and the wind shifts just right, he hears a bell. Faint, tinny, and sees green neon blinking through the trees. Open. He doesn't need gas anymore, but part of him still wants to go back. That's how it gets you. Not all at once. Just a little piece at a time. FM 1069 wasn't a road people talked about. Not really. They avoided it the same way they avoided hospitals and funeral parlors. Quietly, cautiously. They took the longer route through Rockport or cut north through Ingleside when they had to. Because FM 1069 had a story, and even the skeptics, the ones who laughed too loud and always drove with the windows rolled down, didn't laugh when they told it. Locals called her the Woman. They didn't have a better name. No obituary, no newspaper clipping, no plaque at the spot where she first appeared. But they all knew about her. A pale, drowned woman in a torn white dress wandering the edge of the marshes just outside Aransas. Pass. Always barefoot, always soaked, always looking for a ride, and always asking to go home. People who saw her never forgot. Not because it was so terrifying, though it was, but because it didn't feel like seeing a ghost. It felt like being seen. It started, like all real horror does, small and close to home. Cody Truss was a line cook at Hank's Barbecue. 29. Thick wrists, a patchy beard, a '99 Ford Ranger with a cracked tail light. He drove FM 1069 every night after his shift. Shortest way back to his trailer on the edge of the wildlife preserve. He was the kind of guy who didn't believe in ghosts, but he'd knock on wood when he said it. On a foggy Thursday night in September, he saw her. At first, she looked like someone who'd been in an accident, soaked to the bone, standing under a leaning mesquite tree, her arm raised like she was waving down help. Cody braked hard, rolled his window down. "You all right, ma'am?" he called. She didn't answer, just stared. Her eyes were too big for her face, pupils like pinholes. Her skin was mottled blue, lips cracked. And her hair, wet and tangled, hung over one shoulder, glistening in the headlights. Then she spoke. "Can you take me home?" Cody told the police later that her voice wasn't right. Not quiet exactly, not loud either. Just wrong, like it was coming from somewhere too far away, like it was echoing out of a well. He didn't let her in. Something primal held him back. Fight or flight, the kind of fear that bypasses reason. He rolled up the window, through the truck, in gear, and didn't stop until he hit the city limits. He didn't even remember the rest of the drive. But the smell lingered. Damp seaweed, brine, something rotting. That night, he found puddles on the floor of his truck. Salt water. The passenger seat was soaked. A week later, 3 kids from the high school went missing. They'd taken FM 1069 on a dare. One of them, a girl named Lacey, posted a shaky video on her phone. Blurry, grainy footage of them laughing, music playing low in the background. Then it cut to her screaming. The camera spun. In one frame, you could make out a figure in the road. A woman, just standing. The car was found the next day, empty and bone dry. It hadn't rained in days, but the inside was damp, like someone had hosed it down and then dried it with a towel. The keys were still in the ignition. They never found the kids. The stories stretch back decades. One of the earliest dates to 1967, just after Hurricane Beulah tore through the Gulf. A young woman named Anna Jean Weathers went missing that September. Pregnant, unmarried, an embarrassment to her Baptist family. Some say her boyfriend pushed her into the bay during the storm. Others say she ran into the water herself, screaming for God to take her somewhere she wouldn't be judged. Her body was never found. But for years after, people reported seeing a woman in white near Capano Bay. Same dress, same eyes, always asking. The same question, "Can you take me home?" Some people said they did take her, like Ricky Donnelly. In 1983, he was a night shift janitor at the shrimp plant. Claimed he picked up a soaking wet woman just past the old bait shop on FM 1069. Said she climbed into the back of his truck, didn't say a word after that first sentence. He drove for an hour, no idea why, just following her directions. Turn. Here. Go there. Keep driving. And then she told him to stop. There was nothing there. Just marsh. Flat, ugly land with cattails and mosquitoes the size of bottle caps. He turned to ask her if this was it. She was gone. But the next morning, they found his truck. Empty. Still idling, headlights on, driver's door open. They never found Ricky. Just his boots, upside down and half submerged in a puddle of salt water. Then there's the weird stuff, the little things. People driving that road at night feel watched. They hear things, breathing in the back seat, knuckles tapping softly against the window. Sometimes the radio turns on by itself, and it always plays old gospel hymns. Always. Scratchy. Always off-key. One guy, a preacher named Hollis Wayne, claimed she got in his car and burst into tears the moment he pulled away. He said he tried to pray over her. She looked at him and smiled. Her teeth were black. The sheriff's department doesn't investigate FM 1069 calls anymore. Too many false alarms. Too many officers coming back quiet, pale, with nothing to report. One even quit, moved to Colorado, refused to speak about what he'd seen. Burned his cruiser, they say. Every Halloween, thrill seekers drive out there with cameras and EMF readers. Most don't find anything. Just empty road, bugs, and fog, but sometimes they do. Sometimes the footage cuts out. The batteries die. The air turns cold, and somewhere in the static, they hear it. "Can you take me home?" The thing is, no one knows where home is. Some think she means the water, Capano Bay, the place she drowned. Others think it's some pocket of hell, some purgatory she can't reach alone, that she needs a driver, a willing soul, or maybe just a warm body. But one thing is certain, once you stop for her, once you let her inside, it's not just her problem anymore. You carry her, in your mirrors, in your back seat, in your dreams. And maybe one night you'll find yourself driving that road again without meaning to, without wanting to, drawn there like driftwood. You'll see her, waving, and you won't be able to stop yourself. Because home is calling, and this time, you're the ride. They show up when the air gets too still, too quiet, like the desert is holding its breath. 1 minute, it's all crickets and cicadas, dry wind dragging dust across the mesquite. The next, nothing, not even your own heartbeat. That's when you see them. Lights. Soft at first, white, maybe yellow, hovering low over the rocky plains like stars that forgot which direction was up. People call them the Marfa Lights, but these ones show up deeper in the park, beyond the ranger posts and day tripper trails, out past the Chisos Basin and down into the basin floor, where the creosote smells sour and the heat never leaves, not even at night. Tourists think it's an illusion. Rangers say it's refracted light. Gas pockets, heat, shimmer, all the usual. Lies we tell ourselves to sleep. But the old-timers in Terlingua, they don't call them lights. They call them watchers. Because that's what they do. It was mid-July, the kind of Texas heat that bakes through steel and bone. Jimmy Keller was a geology student up from UT Austin, camped out with a group near Mule Ears. His thesis was on volcanic, rock formations, but his heart was somewhere else. He was one of those soft-spoken guys who liked mysteries, disappearances, earthquakes without faults, places that didn't quite make sense. He brought equipment, ENM readers, seismographs, even a drone. But none of it worked out there, Not really. Batteries drained fast. The drone wouldn't calibrate. His compass spun like it had a migraine. On the third night, around 1:40 a.m., Jimmy walked out from his tent to take a leak and saw the lights, 3 of them just above the ridge. Not moving, not blinking, bright enough to cast shadows. He didn't wake the others, didn't take a photo, just stared. Then one of the lights moved, not floated, not drifted. It dropped, like a weight, fast and clean, down into the ground. Just sank. He heard something after that. Something not right. It wasn't a sound, exactly. More like pressure in his ears. A vibration in the dirt. Like something had just opened up down there. They found Jimmy's gear in the morning, and the drone was 30 feet from his tent with its blades melted. But Jimmy was gone. Vanished. No prints, no tracks, just a patch of scorched sand where he'd last stood. They closed off that part of the trail for 6 months, called it unstable terrain. But folks who lived nearby, they knew. There's a motel on the edge of Study Butte, old and cracked and stinking of mildew. The woman who runs it, Miss Hallie, has lived there for 62 years and hasn't stepped outside after sunset since 1981. Says her brother went walking toward the lights one night and came back wrong. He looked the same, she told a reporter once. But he wasn't. Didn't sleep, didn't eat, spent hours sitting on the back porch just staring toward the desert. When he finally spoke, all he said was, "They're under us." And then he gouged out his own eyes with a spoon. He died 3 days later. Internal bleeding. They said it was the stress. Miss Hallie never changed the locks on his trailer. Won't let anyone near it, though. Says sometimes at night she hears footsteps around the place, even though no one lives there anymore. Other stories trickled in. Campers hearing whispers when no one else was around. Rangers finding rocks stacked in spirals, deep, perfect spirals that led nowhere. Entire sections of trail collapsing without warning. One hiker, Aaron Blake, came back from a solo trek across the South Rim with blistered feet and wide, bulging eyes. He didn't speak for a week. Then he started carving symbols into his skin with a pocket knife, said they were maps, said they were showing him how to get below. He kept saying it over and over. Below, like something was under the desert. Watching. Waiting. He vanished, too. All they found was his tent and a hole about the size of a man's body in the desert floor. It wasn't dug. The sand had collapsed inward, clean, like something had pulled. Him straight down. A group of amateur investigators came out in 2015, podcast types. Too many microphones, too much attitude. They camped near Paint Gap, swore they'd prove the lights were government drones or weather phenomena. One guy, Miles, I think, live-streamed the whole night. At 2:03 a.m., he caught something on camera. Not just lights, a shape, something moving behind the lights. Big, slow, heavy, but the feed cut to black before it was clear. His last words on the stream, "They see us." The Rangers found their campsite in the morning, shredded, tents torn apart, gear melted, the sand around the fire pit fused to glass. No blood, no bodies, just handprints, hundreds of them, pressed into the rock. Now, if you drive past Big Bend after dark, sometimes the lights still show up. They float in the distance, always just out of reach. People pull over, stare at them, take pictures that don't develop right. Sometimes they hear the sand shift. Sometimes they dream about tunnels. Deep, spiraling tunnels. And sometimes they don't come back. People say it's the heat, the isolation. The desert plays tricks on the mind. But I know better. The lights aren't a trick. They're a lure, and whatever's under that desert has been waiting a long, long time. Possum Hollow isn't on most maps. It's a spit of land hemmed in by pines and crawling vines, somewhere between the flat highways of Arkansas and the creeping fingers of the Ouachita backwoods. Even the name sounds like a joke, like something made up by truckers or ghost hunters with too much time and bad bourbon in their systems. But it's real, and the locals don't joke about it. Not in July. That's when the screamer wakes up. Every year, like clockwork, around the second or third night of the month, when the heat sits so heavy on the earth it feels like the devil himself is sweating, something howls from the bottom of the abandoned well near the edge of the hollow. A deep, crooked thing that rips through the still night like a razor through cloth. It doesn't sound like a coyote or a bobcat or even the drunken bellow of some backwoods hermit. It sounds like something dying slowly and enjoying it. The story, the one folks whisper behind gas station counters and between sips of sweet tea, is that it's the ghost of a little girl named Lainey Harper. The hollow was poor then, just a string of clapboard houses and gravel roads baking in the summer heat. Lainey was 7, bright, giggly, with long blonde braids and a blue ribbon in her hair she never took off. One afternoon, she wandered into the woods behind her father's tobacco field and never came back. They searched for 3 days. Dogs, helicopters, even a few divers when they finally turned up the old stone well buried under moss and vines. They dropped lights and ropes, but there was nothing. No body, no ribbon, just water so black it looked like ink. The town held a vigil, built a little cross by the well, then tried desperately to forget. But the next July, it screamed. The sound burst from the well like a siren from hell, high, wavering, too long, too human. People heard it for miles. Chickens broke their necks trying to flee the coop. A church, window cracked clean down the center. One boy, just 14, pissed himself and wouldn't speak for a week. They said it was Lainey, trapped, angry. But no child, no matter how hurt, could make that sound. By the early 70s, Possum Hollow had thinned out. Some left for jobs in Little Rock or Shreveport. Others just couldn't stand the sound anymore. Every summer, just past midnight, that scream would come. Sometimes just once, other times in fits, like something clawing to be born. Sheriff Buford Green tried to cement the well shut in 1976, took 3 men and 2 mixers. By morning, the concrete had cracked open. Not shattered, peeled, like something had pushed its way up from inside. They found one of the mixers flipped over, its engine, still warm. Buford left town 6 months later, moved in with his sister in Tulsa. He never talked about that night, but his hands shook for the rest of his life. In 1989, a local boy named Marky Tibbs dared his cousin to spend the night next to the well on the 4th of July. Fireworks still popped in the distance as the cousins set up sleeping bags under the trees, telling dumb jokes and drinking warm soda. They recorded the whole thing on a tape recorder Marky's dad used for hunting notes. The tape's still around. I've heard it. It starts with laughter, kids being kids. You can hear the crackle of a fire, some bugs, distant bottle rockets. Then, around the 40-minute mark, dead silence, not even crickets. And then the scream. It's long, bone deep. It starts like a girl crying, then morphs into something else, something older. The pitch drops halfway through, becomes guttural, echoing like it's coming from inside your own chest. You can hear the boys scrambling. One of them, Marky, I think, starts sobbing. Not crying, sobbing. Then there's a wet thud. Then static. They found Marky 2 hours later. His cousin ran barefoot 5 miles to the sheriff's house, face scratched and bleeding. All he could say was, "It pulled him." Marky was alive, but barely. They found him at the edge of the woods, curled up like a baby. His ears were bleeding, his eyes wide and staring. He didn't talk again. Not once. Not to his parents. Not to doctors. He spent the rest of his life in a care facility. The ribbon, the one Lainey used to wear, they found it clutched in his hand. Blue, frayed at the edges, soaked with blood. Theories spun over the years. Ghost story enthusiasts said Laney's spirit had fused with something else, something inhuman that lived in the well long before settlers came. Folklorists called it a tulpa. Others blamed an old native curse, a sinkhole to hell, or a government experiment gone wrong. One priest called it a mouth, not a mouth that eats, but a mouth that calls. Whatever it is, it's still there. Every July. I went once. Don't ask why. Call it curiosity. Call it grief. Call it the kind of masochism that runs in the blood of men who lose too many people too early. My sister disappeared in 2003, driving through Arkansas. Never made it past Possum Hollow. She'd been on that road. I went to the well last year, stood there with a flashlight and a tape recorder. Nothing happened for an hour. The air felt thick. Bugs stopped buzzing. My flashlight flickered, then I heard it. Not the scream. Not at first. It started with a whisper. My name. Danny. Clear as a bell, then a sob, then her voice. My sister's. Danny, help me. I ran. I left everything behind. The recorder, my bag, the truck keys. I don't even remember how I got out. I just remember the scream behind me, louder than anything I'd ever heard. When I finally looked back, I saw the well, glowing, just for a second, like there was something under the ground, watching, smiling. Now, I hear it sometimes in my dreams, that long, ragged scream that starts like a child and ends like a demon gargling fire. I see the well, open wide like a mouth, the trees bending toward it like they're listening. The locals still won't go near it. They say it's hungry. They say it calls to those who are broken. And every July, someone goes missing. A hiker. A driver. A kid on a bike. The scream always follows. Possum Hollow isn't haunted. It's alive, and it remembers everyone who listens too long. There's something about Route 77 at night that makes your skin crawl if you're paying attention. It's long, mostly flat, stretches through the desolate guts of central Texas like a vein in a dead man's arm. No billboards, no gas stations for 60 miles. Just 2 narrow lanes and the smell of old asphalt baked into the bones of the road. Truckers call it the Devil's Spine. Locals, when they bother to mention it, just shake their heads and say, "Don't stop. Don't ever stop." But everyone who drives it long enough hears the stories. About the convoy. Black trucks, 6 of them, maybe 8. No headlights, no plates, no drivers. Just the glint of moonlight off steel and the low, rattling hum of diesel engines that sound older than the highway itself. They don't come every night. Only when the air gets real still and the crickets stop chirping, when the moon is thin and the stars seem to shrink back into the sky, that's when you see the lead truck. No logo, no numbers, no license plate, just matte black paint and windows darker than midnight oil. You can't see inside. You never see inside. But something sees you. The first recorded incident was in 1972. A CB radio operator named Cliff Dawson was hauling fertilizer from Lubbock to Corpus when he swore he was passed by a military convoy doing 90 without lights. Said they were so close they nearly ripped the side mirror off his rig. He tried to follow, thought maybe they were transporting nukes or government tech. Back then, people were paranoid about that kind of thing. Vietnam was still bleeding into everything. He called it in on his CB. That's when the screaming started. Not his own, not a human scream. The sound came through the radio like it was being dragged through barbed wire. Something between a siren and a howl. Static layered with weeping, moaning, begging. His dashboard flickered, gauges spun. The wheel jerked hard left. Cliff slammed into a ditch at 60 miles an hour. When state police found him 3 hours later, his hands were still locked around the wheel. The look on his face was like he'd seen God, and God had looked back. He never spoke again. Over the years, the sightings stacked up. Always at night, always near mile marker 191. Some say it's just a ghost story, sleep-deprived truckers and desert mirages. But there's too much smoke not to be fire, like the case of Lena Bright, single mom, long-haul driver, had a spotless record, 3 safe driving awards, and nerves like rebar. In 1996, she radioed in at 2:13 a.m., saying she was being tailed by a black truck without lights. Her voice was calm at first. Then it cracked. Dispatch still has the tape. Unit approaching without lights, no license, no driver. It's right on me now. Static, then screaming, then something else. A whisper, male, guttural, not yours to follow. Her truck was found 27 miles off course, parked neatly by the side of the road. Engine off, no damage. No Lena. The cab was clean except for one thing, a palm print on the inside of the windshield, burned into the glass. Charred at the edges like it had been pressed there with molten fingers. People have tried to explain it. Secret military experiments, hallucinations caused by sleep deprivation and highway hypnosis. One guy even blamed electromagnetic storms interacting with fuel vapor. But ask any old-timer who's logged 100,000 miles up and down Route 77, and they'll tell you the truth. The convoy's not from this world. It doesn't run on diesel. It runs on memory, on pain, on something deeper than wheels and axles, something buried. There's a theory, passed around among the few who still use CB radio like a priest uses a prayer book. They say the convoy is made up of trucks that vanished. Ghost, rigs wrecks that were never found, drivers who disappeared without a trace. The lead truck, they say, is the first, the prototype, a military experiment from back in the 50s. They say it wasn't meant to be a truck at all. It was meant to carry souls, a mobile containment unit for something that screamed when it got hungry, and maybe it still gets hungry. There are warnings now. Never flash your lights at the convoy. Never honk. And for God's sake, never try to follow. Because if you do, your radio will crackle. Your lights will flicker. The road behind you will disappear like a dream. And the only thing you'll hear is that screaming, like metal tearing through flesh. And if you keep driving, if you don't turn around, you might start to notice things. Your skin feels too tight. The air gets thick. You can't remember your own name, and the road just keeps going. No signs, no turns, just black trucks all around you, sealing you in, whispering secrets through your radio you were never meant to hear. Until finally, you don't, because now you're one of them, part of the convoy, rolling through eternity on Route 77. No lights, no plates, no face in the window. They should have turned back the first night. That's what Ellen always said later, when it was too late to matter, when the fire had gone out in Ray's eyes and Marcy hadn't spoken in 2 months, when the smell of pine made her vomit and the sound of running water sent her into panic attacks so sharp she could feel them in her teeth. They should have packed up, driven back to Tyler, and slept in their own damn beds. But they didn't. It was supposed to be a simple weekend. 2 nights, 3 days, one perfect patch of East Texas forest. Hidden enough to feel like a real escape, but close enough that the cell signal still worked on the ridge. Ellen had booked the site for her husband Ray's birthday. Marcy, their 12-year-old daughter, had just finished 6th grade. They brought hot dogs, marshmallows, a Bluetooth speaker, and a red and white cooler full of beer and cherry Coke. The first night, everything was fine. The second night, the deer came. It was dusk, the kind of blue fading light that blurs the edges of the world. Ray was poking at the fire, Ellen was cleaning up after dinner, and Marcy was drawing in her sketchbook, a stick of peppermint gum tucked in one cheek. She saw it first. "Mom," she said, pointing toward the tree line. "Look." It stood just outside the glow of the firelight. Still. Perfectly still. A deer. Big. Too big. Its antlers were wide and sharp, branching like jagged lightning. Its coat was thick, mottled brown and gray, the kind of coloring you'd expect in winter, not July. Its eyes reflected the fire strangely, not red like you'd expect, not white, but this pale, murky yellow, like nicotine-stained teeth. And it was smiling, at least that's what it looked like. Its lips were drawn back, not baring its teeth like a snarl, just pulled, stretched, too wide, too long. It stood that way for a long moment, watching. Then it walked away. The forest was silent for hours afterward. No bugs, no frogs, just the occasional pop of the fire. That night, Ellen woke to footsteps outside the tent. Slow, measured, crunch, crunch, pause, crunch. She held her breath, reached out and touched Ray's hand. It was ice cold. "Do you hear that?" she whispered. Ray said nothing. Then the shadow passed over the tent wall. Antlers. Too tall. Much too tall. They scraped the nylon, and for a moment Ellen swore she could see something lean down. Closer too. The mesh window. Breath fogged the screen. Not animal breath. It smelled sweet, like rot and fruit and something old left under the porch. Ellen didn't sleep. The next morning, Marcy said she'd had a dream. A deer was in the tent, she said. Ray laughed it off. Said it was just the wilderness messing with their minds. Said he'd seen deer up close before, and this one was probably just old, diseased maybe. They went hiking, took photos, but Ellen couldn't stop glancing over her shoulder. That night, it came back, closer, just beyond the campfire, staring, and it wasn't alone. There were three now, one tall, one small, and one that hunched strangely, its back too long, its legs too thin, all of them smiling, all of them with those wrong eyes. Like lamps left on in an empty house. Ray stood up, waving his arms, shouting, but the deer didn't move, didn't blink, just stared. When Ray threw a rock, the tall one stepped forward. Its smile widened. It made a sound, not a grunt, not a snort. A laugh. Short, sharp, human. Then they turned and walked into the dark. Ellen made them leave the next morning. But the road out was gone. Not overgrown. Gone. The path they'd driven down was now a tangle of trees and brush. No tire tracks, no trail. Just wild growth and buzzing flies. The GPS spun. The sun stayed in one place. Time slipped. Ray started talking to himself. Marcy stopped drawing, and every night the deer got closer. By the fifth night, they were in the campsite, walking between the tents, leaving hoof prints that burned the grass. Ray tried to shoot one with the flare gun. The flare didn't go off. The deer didn't flinch. It walked right up to him and leaned in. Ellen saw it. It whispered something. Ray screamed. He screamed all night, and in the morning, he couldn't speak at all. His tongue was gone. No blood, just an empty mouth and those wide, hollow eyes. Ellen found the ranger station on the 7th day, or what used to be the ranger station. It was rotted through, like it had been abandoned for decades. Inside, there, were photos, black and white. Families, couples, children, all smiling, all surrounded by deer, and in the corner of each photo, just barely visible, was the tall one. Its eyes, pale yellow, its smile too wide, always watching. They never left the woods. Not really. Someone found the campsite months later, but no bodies, just a tent, a sketchbook with antlers drawn on every page, and hoof prints. Everywhere. And if you go out near Tyler in July, some nights you might see it. A deer, standing just beyond the trees, smiling, waiting, And if you stare too long, if you look back, you'll feel it, that slow, hot breath behind your ear, and a voice that doesn't belong in this world, whispering, "I see you now," because it's always watching, and it always wants more. They say the air around the windmill tastes like metal and regret. Ask anyone who's lived long enough near Dead Elk Road outside Abilene, and they'll tell you the same thing. That it started with a man named Jonah Pike. That something went wrong out there on his old ranch. The kind of wrong you don't put in newspapers or obituaries. The kind of wrong you only speak of in diner booths over lukewarm coffee and silence. Jonah was one of those hard men, built of drought and disappointment, a jaw like a cattle press and eyes so pale they looked ghosted before he died. He inherited the Pike Ranch from his father, who'd gone soft and strange in his last years, whispering to the livestock and standing in the fields at night like he was waiting for something to come out of the sky. But Jonah didn't believe in ghosts or visions or God. He believed in sweat, fences, and land. Still, something about that windmill made him nervous. It was already there when his father bought the land in 1947. A rusted thing then, tall and black, and crooked like a broken spine, its veins bent out of symmetry. Every other piece of machinery had been replaced or burned down over the decades, but not that windmill. It was rooted in the ground like a tombstone. Jonah tried once to tear it down. That was back in '71, during the worst drought West Texas had seen in 30 years. No rain for months, cattle keeling over in the fields, a sun that never forgave. He hitched a chain from the mill's base to his pickup and floored it, tires kicking up devil dust as the chain snapped tight. And then came the sound. No one ever could agree what it sounded like. Some said a howl. Others said a woman's scream. Jonah told the doctor it was the voice of his dead mother saying, "You shouldn't have done that." The truck's engine caught fire. Jonah was thrown from the cab and broke his collarbone. He never went near the windmill again, not until the night he died. By then, the farm had already failed. Years of erosion, market crashes, and rust had eaten away everything he'd built. His wife, Nadine, left in 1981, saying she couldn't sleep in a house that groaned at night, said the pipes whispered, said the shadows moved backward. She was found wandering outside Sweetwater 2 days later, naked, eyes bloody, speaking a language nobody could identify. They committed her to Ridgeview. She never came back. Jonah stayed alone. That's when the rumors began. About the windmill spinning on windless nights, about the hum that bled into the soil and made your fillings ache, about birds falling dead midair over the house like they'd flown through something invisible and wrong. Neighbors said the air near the windmill turned cold in the summer. That time stuttered around it. Watches stopped, radios clicked off, cell phones never got signal. And then there was the taste. The metallic tang of iron and something older, like battery acid and forgotten guilt. Kids dared each other to cross the field, but none of them stayed more than a minute. The bravest ones made it close enough to see the thing spin. Even then, they say it didn't turn right. It shuddered like something trying to escape itself. Jonah shot himself on August 14, 1983. He did it in the barn, just after sundown, after locking the horses in the tack shed and setting fire to the chicken coop. Left a note pinned to the door. 4 words. It's not mechanical anymore. No one claimed the land. No one wanted to. The county let it sit, but the windmill never stopped. It doesn't spin constantly, no. That would be too easy. It spins when it wants, when it's hungry, when someone remembers it. That's how I got caught up in it. My name's Robbie Pike. Jonah was my uncle. My dad moved us to Dallas when I was 10, and we never went back. He wouldn't talk about the ranch, not even when he was drunk and mean. But I remember the windmill. I remember the way it made me feel like my insides were being listened to, like it knew my name before I did. When Dad died, I inherited the land. I wasn't going to visit. But something about the windmill stuck in my mind like a splinter. I started dreaming about it, spinning under a red sky, grinding down sunlight into shadows. And always that sound. Low, moaning, like a choir of old voices buried alive. So I went, back. It looked worse than I remembered. The house was a carcass. The barn, gone. The fences like ribs rising from sand. But the windmill stood tall, taller than it should have, and it spun. There was no wind. The grass didn't even sway. And yet, it turned. I walked toward it. Not fast, not slow, just drawn, like iron to a magnet. I could feel the taste in the air. Wet copper and something electrical. My ears popped. The sound came through my bones instead of my ears, like someone screaming underwater. I started crying and didn't know why. There were bones at the base, small. Animal, I hoped. They were stacked in spirals, arranged. The blades of the windmill creaked and clicked like they were counting, and then it stopped. I stood there for maybe 5 minutes, or an hour. I don't know. It whispered to me. Not words, not exactly. More like an idea, like remembrance made physical. A feeling that whatever had started inside that windmill wasn't from here, wasn't from anywhere that belonged to us, and it was lonely. That's the worst of it. It wasn't evil, not like the stories say. It was sad. It was hungry. It spins because it's the only thing it can do. It spins to keep itself sane. It spins to make itself heard. I think Jonah understood it in the end. That's why he killed himself. Not because it told him to, because he heard it, and he knew the sound would never stop. I've been back every year since. I don't tell anyone. I bring salt and blood and whisper old names into the gears. Not because I believe it helps, but because the windmill listens. And sometimes, late at night when I hear it spin across the dark plains, I hear my uncle's voice in the hum, and my father's, and maybe one day, mine. Because now I know what the windmill really is. It's not a machine, it's a mouth, and one day it will open. Nobody talks about the field like they used to. They whisper, maybe, behind church pews and tractor sheds, and old-timers shift their dentures and glance toward County Road 189 with that look, the one that says, best leave it be. But I'll tell it anyway. I saw it for myself one August night, and if I don't say it out loud, it'll rot in my belly like that smell of sulfur that never leaves. It starts with the heat. Not just regular Texas heat, the kind that boils off the highway and makes your clothes stick to your spine, but a still dead pressure that settles into the bones like grief. The air goes quiet around Gonzales in late July. The crickets stop, the birds vanish, dogs don't bark, and then, one morning, the field is black again. Always the same 3 acres, always burned perfectly inside its old barbed wire fence, and never a damn ember or scorch mark on the fence itself. People say it started in 1943, back when a traveling preacher named Grayson King set up his tent revival out there, claimed he could cure ailments with just a touch, said God spoke through him in tongues only the dying could understand. His voice shook the oaks, they said. Thunder in a man's lungs. Crowds came. Miracles happened. Or they looked like they did. Blind women crying. Bent backs straightened. Tumors vanishing under fingers slick with oil and sweat. Then one day, Grayson vanished. Some say he was taken up in a pillar of fire. Others say a woman came from Mexico, skin like smoke and a tongue like knives, and when she kissed his cheek, the whole tent caught. But the fire didn't spread. The wheat around it didn't even brown. And when the ashes cooled, no one found a single tooth or button. Just a burned patch, 3 acres wide, and a black feather that smelled like brimstone. The next year, in August, it burned again, every year since. I went out there in 2014. I was 37 and angry at God for taking my daughter. Cancer doesn't care how many times you pray. Neither does that field. I thought maybe I'd find something out there. Answers, or grief that finally made sense. I camped nearby with a camera and a thermos of coffee. There was no wind that night, no insects, just stillness and heat. A heat that pressed on the lungs like wet wool. Around 2:11 a.m., my watch stopped. Not froze, stopped. The second hand hung like it was caught in honey. And then the smell. Sulfur, thick and choking, like a match lit in your throat. The sky didn't light up. There were no flames. But when I looked toward the field, I saw the grass crumbling, strip by strip. Not burning, disappearing into soot, erasing itself like time run backward. In the middle, something moved. Not a person. Not really. It looked like it could have been once, but its limbs bent the wrong way, its arms too long, its head wrong, like a scarecrow made from grief and ash and ancient prayer. It didn't walk. It floated, dragging something behind it. I tried to run. My feet wouldn't move. Not held, not stuck, just forgotten. Like my legs had been erased from God's memory. I could only stand there, blinking into tears from the smell, while the figure reached the center of the field and opened its mouth. No sound came out, but my ears bled. When I woke, I was back in my truck. Engine cold. The sun just peeking over. The tree line. And the field was black again, perfect like a painting in morning. No footprints, no fire damage to the fence. Just that smell and something soft on the dash. A black feather. I never went back. I sold the truck. Changed towns. But every August, the air turns heavy in my lungs, and I wake up from dreams of fire that doesn't burn and voices that don't. Speak but scream inside. People say the field's just a local legend, a heat mirage. Some say it's a chemical thing underground, some kind of gas pocket, but none of them have seen it. Not really. There's a reason no one builds near it. Not. Even cattle graze close, the land remembers. And whatever lives in that soil, it's not finished yet. So if you're ever in Gonzales and you see the black stretch of field at the end of 189, keep driving. Don't stop. Don't breathe too deep. And for God's sake, if you see a feather on the ground, don't pick it up. They say Devil's Lake isn't cursed. Not in the usual way, anyway. You won't find fog rolling in every midnight or ghostly voices calling your name across the water. But there's something wrong with the place, all the same. Something. Old and patient like rot in the beams of an abandoned house, it waits. That's what it does best. Waits and watches. And it remembers. On the north side of Devil's Lake, just where the woods start to press in too close and the trees lean like eavesdropping strangers, there's a picnic table. The last one. Doesn't look like much, just a weather-beaten slab of gray pine with rusted bolts and peeling green paint on the benches. You might not even notice it unless you're looking for it, because the path that leads to it isn't part of the official campground trails anymore. The Parks Department doesn't talk about it. They say the land beyond a certain point is under conservation. Unsafe, they say. Erosion, maybe. Falling branches. But the real reason is simpler. They're afraid of it. You see, the story goes like this. If you sit at that last table after midnight, just you, no one else, not even a dog, you'll hear footsteps behind you. Slow, wet-sounding footsteps, like someone walking barefoot through grass that's just turned to mud. And then someone, something, will join you at the table. You won't see them at first. You might feel the wood shift slightly under a new weight, or the air go colder, sharp enough to sting your sinuses. You might even smell something strange, like damp earth, old paper, copper, but eventually they'll speak. And when they do, they'll say a name. Not yours, not anyone you know. A name that has no business being known by anyone at all. A name you've kept hidden. A name tied to a secret you swore would die with you. They say that when it happens, you have two choices. You can speak the truth, say the name out loud and what it means to you, or you can lie. But if you lie, if you pretend you don't know, or worse, if you run, they'll follow you. Not in the way you think, not down the trail or back to your car. No, they follow you inward. They live in the cracks, in the memory you tried to bury. And one day, when you're least expecting it, you'll wake up in a place that feels familiar but isn't. A room where the corners are all wrong, where the air tastes like dust and grief, and there'll be someone waiting across from you again. Asking, smiling, still asking. That's the legend. I used to laugh at it, honestly. Thought it was local color, the kind of story that adds flavor to a town with more raccoons than residents. I was born in Hillgrove, about 10 miles from Devil's Lake. Lived there until I was 17. Left after the accident. The kind that makes people stop saying your name when it comes up in conversation. I never thought I'd go back. I swore I wouldn't. But then I got the letter. There was no return address. Just a single line written in ballpoint on the back of a water bill envelope. You know what happened wasn't your fault, but he doesn't. That was all. No signature. Just that. But I knew. God help me, I knew who it meant. Brady, my younger brother. Dead since 2002. We were walking the trail up near Devil's Lake when he slipped. That's what the papers said. That's what I told the cops. That's what I told my parents, and the grief counselors and the therapist they made me see for 2 years after. But it wasn't true. Not all of it, anyway. The truth is, Brady had found something. A notebook, half buried in the sand near that last table. Waterlogged, old and warped like it had been down in the lake for decades. He opened it. I told him not to. He flipped through. The pages anyway, laughing, reading the scrawls of ink that bled and blurred into nothing. Then he stopped laughing. The pages started turning on their own. I saw it. So did he. He tried to throw it, but it stuck to his hands like sap. He panicked, ran, didn't look, his foot caught on the root. The rest was screaming and a crack that still wakes me up some nights. They found his body the next day at the bottom of the ravine. No notebook, no mention of a table. They called it a tragic misstep, a freak accident. They told me I was brave for trying to help, for staying with him as long as I did. But I didn't. I ran. I left him there, and I kept running for 23 years. But that letter, it pulled something loose in me. A dam broke. The nightmares came back sharper this time, and in them, he was sitting at that table smiling at me with the bottom half of his jaw swinging loose, and in his hand, that same damned notebook. So I went back. It was July. Always July. The night was hot, but Devil's Lake felt cold the moment I stepped onto the trail. The woods were too quiet. Even the crickets seemed to be holding their breath. I brought nothing with me. No flashlight, no phone. Just a lighter and an old bottle of bourbon I'd kept sealed for 20 years, waiting for a day I swore would never come. I walked past the normal picnic areas, past the rusted grills and overturned trash bins. The path thinned. The weeds got thicker. The moon barely lit the way. But I remembered every turn, every route, every silence. And then there it was, the table. The same as before, yet somehow different. It leaned toward me like it had been waiting. I sat down without thinking. The wood was wet, though it hadn't rained in days. My palms stuck to it. The smell was exactly as I remembered. Mildew, lake rot, and something deeper, something old. For a while, nothing happened. I sat in silence, sipping bourbon, whispering apologies I wasn't sure anyone could hear. Then the wind stopped. No rustle, no breeze, just stillness, and then I felt it, the weight, across from me. I didn't see him arrive. One blink he wasn't there, the next, he was Brady. But not Brady, not exactly. His skin was gray-blue, stretched too tight across his face. His eyes were cloudy but still too bright. He looked disappointed. That was the worst part. "You lied," he said. I nodded. "You left." I nodded again. There was nothing else to do. Then he asked, "Why?" I told him. I told him everything. The fear, the selfishness, the part of me that felt like I had to run, that if I stayed, I'd be dragged under too. I cried. I drank. I begged. And when I was finished, he stood. The wind started again. He walked away, back into the trees. He didn't say goodbye. I don't think he forgave me, but I don't think he hated me anymore either. When I left the lake, the notebook was sitting on the table, dry, clean, waiting. I burned it, every page. Took me hours, and still. Sometimes I dream of names I've never heard but somehow know. Sometimes I dream of the table. Sometimes it calls. And when it does, I wonder, who else is hiding something? And how long will it be before they get their letter? They always said the Blanco Library didn't have a basement. It was one of those things everyone knew, like how the bakery used too much almond in their croissants, or how Miss Gwen had been the librarian since Christ wore sandals. No basement. Never had one. The town archives even said so, in ink and typewritten certainty. Foundation sealed, slab construction, no lower levels. So when Nico Morales came home on a sticky May afternoon talking about stairs that led down below, the library, stairs that hadn't been there the week before, or ever, his mother did what most parents do. She smiled, asked what book he'd checked out, and chalked it up to the kind of story 11-year-old boys make up when the school year is crawling towards summer. But Nico wasn't the kind of kid who made up stories. He was the kind of kid who cataloged things. He'd made his own Dewey Decimal System for his comic books. He kept a notebook of all the weird stuff around Blanco. Stray dogs with different colored eyes that disappeared when you followed them. The closed-down antique shop where the mannequins were never in the same pose twice. The man in the green El Camino who never seemed to blink. He called it his oddities log. The staircase, naturally, got its own section. He'd gone to the library looking for information on the Spanish missions of South Texas, his newest obsession, when he noticed something odd behind the non-fiction section. Shelves 810 to 820. Poetry, essays, plays. Stuff no one ever touched. And there, where there'd always been wall, was a doorway. Narrow, dusty, leading to stairs that curved down into a darkness so absolute it seemed to push against your eyes. He told himself it was just storage, a new remodel. Maybe they were adding a basement now. But he'd been coming to the Blanco Library since he was 6, and he knew there'd never been a doorway there before. Then came the whisper. It didn't echo. It didn't make a sound in the air. It was inside him, a hush that threaded itself into his thoughts, like someone sighing just behind his ear, but from inside his head. Nico, it said. Not spoken, just known. He ran. Smart boy, smart enough to be scared. He didn't go back for 3 days, but the library stayed open, and the door stayed visible, at least to him. When he brought his best friend Owen to show him the wall was solid again. No door, no stairs, just aging shelves and that musty paper smell that wrapped itself around your clothes like old perfume. Nico was embarrassed, angry, but not crazy. He knew what he saw. Sasha Green found the stairs next. She was quiet, artistic, the kind of girl who hummed while drawing vines on the corners of her notebook pages. Her little brother Milo had come with her, bored and loud, while she looked for a book on folk tales. Milo said Sasha stopped suddenly, that she went pale and whispered, "Did you hear that?" He didn't hear anything. Not at first, but then she turned, like a sleepwalker, and started moving toward the back of the library, toward the same shelves, toward the door that wasn't supposed to exist. He saw her step into the darkness. He waited. 5 minutes. 10. He got scared. Ran to the front desk. By the time the librarian got there, Sasha was gone. Gone for 2 hours. They found her, eventually, curled behind the genealogy desk, shivering, lips moving soundlessly. Her socks were black with moldy water, her shoes missing. She didn't remember going downstairs. Didn't remember anything but a voice that knew her name. They took her to the clinic. The doctor said she had signs of dissociative fugue. A fancy way of saying something scared her so badly she left herself behind. After Sasha, things started to get strange. Kids who had never spoken to each other began drawing the same staircase in their notebooks. One kid, Owen, the same friend Nico had tried to show the door to, started sleepwalking. His parents found him at 2 a.m., standing at the front doors of the locked library in his pajamas, whispering, 17 steps. 17. I only counted 16 last time. Miss Gwen retired suddenly. She didn't even finish out the week. Left a handwritten note on her desk that said, "It's awake again. I'm sorry." Her replacement lasted only 4 days before requesting a transfer to Austin, claiming something was wrong with the foundation. Said she heard what sounded like crying beneath the floorboards. Then came the sinkhole. It opened behind the library one stormy night, swallowing half the old parking lot. City engineers showed up and said the ground was soft. Subterranean erosion. Nothing to panic about, but the kids knew better, because when they looked into the sinkhole, they didn't see dirt or roots or broken pipes. They saw stairs. Only the first 5 or 6 were visible, but they looked just like the ones Nico had drawn in his oddities log. Narrow, worn, wet, leading down into blackness that seemed deeper than the earth should allow. And worse, that's when the smell started. A damp, earthy rot, like wet soil mixed with sour milk. It clung to the library no matter how many times the janitor bleached the floors. It followed children home, made dogs whine and tug their leashes when walking past the building. That summer, 3 more children went missing. One was found 2 days later, standing in her closet, catatonic. Another showed up in the alley behind the ice cream parlor with her shoes on the wrong feet and her fingernails packed with dirt. The third, Avery Dalton, was never found at all, but her library card was. It had been wedged under the locked back door of the Blanco library, a smear of black-green muck dried across its surface. The town held a meeting, voted to close the building indefinitely. A sign went up. Due to structural instability, the Blanco library is closed until further notice. But the kids still hear the whispering. Some say it follows them in dreams. Others hear it at the playground, in closets, in the rustle of trees, always just out of reach, always saying their name. Nico, now 14, doesn't speak much, but he writes, and he's still cataloging. In a new notebook, he started a list titled, "Children Who Can Still Hear the Stairs." It's 14 names long now. He thinks the stairs move, thinks they're not tied to the library anymore, thinks they've spread, and sometimes, only when he's alone, he thinks he hears someone climbing up them, not down, up, and the last time he dreamed about them, he heard a voice say, clear as daylight and cold as a crypt, "The basement was never beneath the library. The library was built above me." The notebook ends there. The town of Blanco doesn't talk about the library anymore. People moved, families changed schools, kids stopped whispering. But if you ever pass through Blanco late at night, especially near Main and Pecan, roll your windows up. Drive straight through. Don't stop. Because if you listen too closely, you might hear stairs where there shouldn't be any, and something waiting at the bottom that already knows your name. the tracks out near Huntsville don't see much freight anymore. Just the occasional screech of rusted steel and the low groan of an empty car being pulled to God knows where. They say the rail died years ago, but the whisper of it still lingers, and so does the boy. He walks the tracks just past Old Killian Road, where the kudzu grows thick and snakes like green veins around forgotten boxcars and broken fences. The locals don't talk much about him anymore, not because they've forgotten, but because remembering carries a weight, a burden that never quite leaves your shoulders once you've seen him, once you've spoken to him. I first heard about the boy from a drunk named Ellis who sat at the end of the bar at Morgan's every Thursday. Old man, yellow teeth, a cough like a gravel truck starting in winter. He told me the story one rainy night in 2003. The jukebox was playing something soft, Orbison or Presley, I forget which, and the lights above the counter flickered, like they always did during storms. Ellis had leaned in and whispered, "There's a boy who walks them tracks at night. Not every night, but some. Always after the sky turns dark blue, like bruises on old skin. He hums something, a lullaby, real soft, the kind your mama might have sung before the world got sharp around the edges. But it ain't a song from now. It's from then, from 1959. He took a long sip of whiskey, then added, "If you hear him and speak, he asks if you want to trade places. Never explaining what that means. Just asks, with eyes like waterlogged marbles and a smile too wide for his face." I laughed at first, like most people do when old drunks spin ghost stories in dive bars, but I didn't laugh the next night when I heard the humming. I was driving home from my shift at the paper mill, rain tapping against the windshield, wipers dragging across the glass like fingernails. Just before I turned off Killian Road, I saw him. A boy, maybe 9 or 10, barefoot, pale skin shining like porcelain under the moonlight, dark hair plastered to his forehead. He was walking dead center on the tracks, arms swaying at his sides, and I swear to God, I could hear him humming through the closed windows of my car. The tune didn't come from the radio. It came from somewhere, deeper, like it rose up from the tires or crawled through the chassis of the truck. I stopped. I don't know why. Some part of me wanted to believe it was just a kid. Lost, maybe. But when I rolled down the window and called out, "Hey, you okay out there?" he stopped walking. Didn't turn, didn't flinch, just stopped. Then, slowly, he turned around. His face wasn't right. Not because it was monstrous or burned or twisted like something out of a movie. It was wrong because it was too perfect. Like a porcelain doll crafted by hands that had never seen a human child. His eyes glistened too much. His skin didn't have a single blemish. His lips moved, but when he spoke, the sound came from everywhere. Oh, not just his mouth. "Do you want to trade places?" he asked. I couldn't speak, couldn't even breathe. The words stuck in my throat like dry bread. He waited, head tilted like a crow listening for worms. The air grew heavier the longer I sat in silence. It smelled like old coins and copper wiring. Finally, I choked out, "No." He nodded, just once, then turned and walked into the dark. The humming started again, fainter this time, swallowed by the pines and the fog. I drove home in a daze, locked every door, pulled the curtains, poured myself 2 fingers of something stronger than guilt. I didn't sleep, I didn't blink, I just waited. Over the years, I learned more. A man in town, Pete Landry, claimed he saw the boy back in '78 and said yes. Nobody knows what happened to Pete after that. His wife said he vanished, just walked into the woods one night and never came back. Cops found his boots by the tracks, clean, dry, like they hadn't touched earth in days. Then there was the girl in 1991, 11 years old, said she heard a lullaby from the trees near the tracks. She followed the sound. They found her 3 days later, barefoot and silent, sitting in the middle of her room with her hands over her ears, humming to herself. She wouldn't talk, not even to her mother. She still doesn't. What does it mean to trade places? Some say the boy died in 1959. A train accident. Maybe he fell. Maybe he jumped. Some folks whisper about a cruel stepfather or a dare gone wrong. But the dates don't add up. People saw the boy before 1959. And after. The only thing that stays the same is the song. I went back to those tracks last month. Don't ask me why. Maybe I needed to know. Maybe I was too tired to care anymore. I brought a tape recorder. Old Sony, from the 90s. I set it on the ties just beyond the tree line where the kudzu swallows the ground. I waited. Midnight came. So did the humming. I didn't call out, I didn't move, I let the tape roll. After a few minutes, the humming stopped, and then, for the first time, the recorder picked up something else. A voice. Whispery. Wet. Close. Do you want to trade places? I hit stop, picked up the recorder, drove home faster than I ever have. I still have the tape, still can't bring myself to play it again. But sometimes, when I'm in bed at night, the player turns on by itself, and the boy hums. So, if you ever find yourself near Killian Road, and you hear a lullaby that sounds like it came from your grandmother's record cabinet, keep driving, don't stop, and for God's sake, don't answer him. They don't put it on the brochures, the whisper about what lies beneath Lake Whitney. On the glossy pages, you get the pictures of smiling families with marshmallow sticks, the fiberglass boats trolling at sunset, and the red and orange blaze of Texas sky bleeding into the water. But folks who've lived near the lake long enough, people like old Sheriff Bramble, or Ada, who runs the bait shop with that squint-eyed German shepherd, well, they'll tell you something else. If they're drunk enough, if you ask the right way. If the wind is coming off the lake just wrong, they'll tell you it breathes. Not like a breeze or a trick of the reeds. Not the moan of current against a dock piling. No, this is breath, deep and slow. A low inhale, like something massive, something old, something dreaming. It was the summer of '92 when the first kids went missing. Officially, anyway. Unofficially, locals say folks have vanished up there since the '40s, maybe earlier, maybe before the dam was even built. That summer, 3 college kids, Becca, Denny, and a guy named Kyle, parked their rusty Chevy Blazer near the boat ramp and set up camp. Along the North Shore, cheap beer, mosquito spray, and the kind of blind optimism that gets baked into you at 20. They never came back. When the park ranger found their site 2 days later, the fire pit was cold. Sleeping bags were zipped and laid out neat. Cooler, half full, uneaten hot dogs still sealed. But the oddest thing was the canoe, tied up to a tree on dry land, untouched. No struggle, no signs of animal tracks or torn fabric. Just the sound of something large shifting in the water nearby, though the ranger said the lake was still. Too still. People said maybe it was drugs, maybe they hiked out, maybe they got lost in the brush. But nobody found tracks, and the dogs, brought in from Hillsboro, wouldn't even approach the shore, just paced and whined and pulled their handlers in the other direction. Things went quiet again for a few years, until 2001. A man named Gregory Short went fishing off the East Pier. At 3:13 a.m., that part's important. Everyone who's seen it or heard it says the thing stirs just before dawn. Greg had a habit of recording his solo trips. He liked to talk to his wife, who'd passed of cancer the year before. Left a little camcorder on the edge of the boat, facing him while he cast his lines and talked like she was right there beside him. The footage cuts off at 3:19. No splash. No struggle. 1 second he's sitting, mumbling about how the catfish aren't biting, and the next, nothing. Not a ripple on the water. The only sound captured in those final seconds is a long, deep breath. Inhale. Hold. Cut. His boat was found the next afternoon, drifting toward the opposite shore. No blood, no sign of a fall. Just Greg's tackle box, one rod snapped clean in half, and his wedding ring lying in the bottom of the boat. After that, the stories got stranger. Kids said you could see hands in the water if you stared long enough. Pale. Hands, not moving, just resting there, fingers curled like they were waiting. A couple from Waco swore they saw something massive roll just under the surface, like a whale or a sunken barge, except the lake's too shallow for either. One guy, Vietnam, vet, tough as nails, moved into a cabin near the waterline in 2007. Lasted a week, claimed he heard something scratching from beneath the dock every night. Said it whispered his name. He moved inland and hasn't gone near the lake since, but none of them told the whole story. Only Ada did, though she regretted it after. She, too, told me there's a creek bed under the lake that used to be the town of Tawash, flooded when they built the dam in the 1950s. Whole buildings down there, she said. Stone walls, collapsed roof beams, even the old church bell, which some nights you can hear ring if the wind's right. Ada said her grandfather was a boy when they drowned the town, bought the land cheap, gave folks 24 hours to clear out. But there was one man who refused to leave. He was the preacher, said the land was cursed, that something was buried beneath the church, something ancient, hungering. Town called him crazy, left him there. They say he stayed while the water rose, knee-deep, waist-deep, up to his neck. And still he prayed. Still he waited. Ada said it didn't drown him. Said it took him. Now, it sleeps, mostly, for years at a time. But when it dreams, it breathes. And when it breathes, it feeds. The rangers won't let you camp too close to the shore anymore, say it's a fire hazard or a wildlife thing. But they know. You can see it in their eyes when you ask. And if you're up late enough, around 4 a.m., standing on the edge of the lake with your toes just brushing the water, you'll hear it too. A sigh, a pulse, like the lake is alive and dreaming and very, very hungry. They say if you head west out of Cuero and drive past the mesquite brush and the barbed wire fences long enough, you'll come to a road that isn't on any map. The kind of road that's too straight to be natural, too narrow to be man-made. Locals call it Mercy Trail, though no one can agree where the name came from. Some say it was a path settlers took to escape a Comanche raid back in the 1800s. Others claim it's older, something carved into the land by a preacher who went mad and buried himself alive. Either way, the road's there, even if it looks more like a scar than a path. You drive it when the air feels heavy, when the crickets go quiet, when your radio starts to pick up songs you've never heard, sung in voices that don't quite sound human. It's there, at the end of Mercy Trail, that you'll find the church. It's small, maybe one-room sized, and painted a dull, blistering white that looks like old bone. There's a steeple, though no bell, no cross, and no doors, no windows, just smooth walls, solid as coffin wood. Most folks don't stop. They look, they feel that strange pinch in their chest, the one that says something is watching, and they keep on driving. But some people don't listen to their gut. Some people want to prove it's just an abandoned shed or a prank from bored teenagers, and some people are like Nolan Stokes. Nolan was a substitute teacher from Goliad, the kind who wore corduroy in July and read Moby Dick out loud like it was scripture. He didn't believe in ghosts or God or anything he couldn't explain with a footnote. When he heard about the church with no doors, he chuckled, said it sounded like something from a campfire tale. But curiosity's a funny thing. It eats logic like rust eats metal. The more he thought about it, the more he needed to see it. He went one evening just before dusk, told his neighbor he was going to visit an old mission site in case anyone asked. He brought a flashlight, a notebook, and an old cassette recorder. He left his phone at home. Didn't want distractions, he said. They found the car 2 days later, parked neatly off the side of the road, keys still in the ignition, doors locked. No sign of Nolan. What they did find was his tape recorder, jammed between the seats, full of static, except for one part. About 30 seconds in, the middle, a voice whispering so low you'd miss it if you blinked too hard. It said, "Knock, knock, I see you. Knock, knock, I'm inside you." And then, a sound like something tapping bone, from the inside. It wasn't the first time. Back in '59, a girl named Lila disappeared after prom. Folks found her corsage outside the chapel, petals black and shriveled like they'd been set on fire. In '73, a Vietnam vet went off the grid. Last seen headed down Mercy Trail. Dog tags later discovered nailed to a mesquite tree. Every time, someone vanishes, and the town moves on. But the church doesn't. It just waits. Some have tried to open it. Brought drills, crowbars, even a small bulldozer once. Nothing works. The walls don't break. The wood doesn't burn. It's as if the chapel's not built on the land, but grown from it. There was a boy, Danny, about 10, who got dared by his cousins to knock on it. Just once. A gentle tap with his knuckles. He laughed when he did it, called it boring. Then froze. His smile faded. He stared off into the distance for almost 5 minutes. When he blinked again, he started screaming. Said the knock came back, but not from the wall. From his head, from behind his eyes. Doctors called it a seizure. He called it something else. A voice made of wood and teeth. He doesn't talk much anymore. Just hums, mostly. A strange tune no one recognizes. But one old woman, a retired music teacher, swears it's a Gregorian chant. Said, "It's not from here. Not from now. No one's seen the inside of that church. But stories say there is an inside. That it's full of pews, all facing backward. That there's a pulpit made of antlers, and candles that never melt. And sitting in the front row is something tall, wrapped in veil after veil, each one stitched from human hair. They say it preaches in whispers, in a tongue older than Scripture. They say the congregation answers back, and sometimes they sound like voices you used to know, Grandma, your first-grade teacher, the boy who drowned at summer camp, the baby you never had. They say if you stay too long, you start to forget your own name, that the chapel gives you a new one, a better one that suits what you've become. Of course, these are just stories, folklore. No one really believes them. But if you're ever out near Cuero, and the light goes strange and your GPS stops working, and you feel that pull toward a road that shouldn't be there, do yourself a favor. Don't knock. Because whatever's in there already knows you, and it's been waiting a long, long time. They said he first showed up in the summer of '87, just off U.S. Route 84, outside Lubbock where the cotton fields run flat and the heat makes the road shimmer like a fever dream. Back then, no one paid much mind to a man walking with his thumb out, especially not when the sky was bleeding orange and purple and the sun was low enough to give your shadow teeth. But folks who stopped for him, those few that did, never forgot the way he looked. He was tall. Not unusually so, but uncomfortably so. Built like someone who'd spent too long being pulled by something underground. Skin pale, not the kind of pale you get from staying inside, but like paper, thin and veined, the kind that didn't belong in Texas. His clothes were old, like they'd belonged to someone else a long time ago. Dusty black jeans, cracked leather boots, a canvas coat that didn't match the season, and always the same phrase, "You headed west? Never east, never south, never toward the morning. Always west." Mick Rayburn picked him up once in '93. Mick was running late, hauling empty crates back from Abilene after delivering livestock feed. The sun was nearly gone behind the trees, and the hitchhiker was standing perfectly still near a dead armadillo on the shoulder. Not waving, not moving, just standing there with his thumb half up and his head tilted. Mick said he looked more like a scarecrow than a man, but he'd seen enough of Texas weird to know most of it was just booze and sunstroke. He figured, what's the harm? The guy climbed in without a word. Didn't ask where Mick was going, didn't thank him, just sat real quiet, eyes fixed on the horizon like he was waiting for something to come up behind them. You from around. Here? Mick had asked. The hitchhiker's voice was dry, flat. I used to be. You heading home? No, the man said. I'm running from it, that was all. Mick drove in silence for about 30 miles before he noticed the smell. Not rot, not sweat. Something sharper, like burning meat, but faint, like it was coming through the vents from far away. Then came the heat. Not from outside, but from him. The man started shifting, adjusting in his seat like his clothes itched. Mick saw his hands in the dashboard light. They were shaking. Smoking. Pull over, the hitchhiker said. Mick didn't ask. He pulled over so fast the crates rattled. The man jumped out before the truck even stopped moving. Mick said he watched him run west, straight into a field of mesquite scrub and yucca. Never looked back. Just ran like the devil himself was stretching the sky behind him. He'd almost convinced himself it was nothing, a heat mirage, a freak encounter until a month later. That was when his truck caught fire in the driveway. No one could explain it. No electrical fault, no gas leak, just black scorch marks on the front seat. And the passenger door, warped like something had pushed out. It's been nearly 40 years since he first showed up, and he's still out there. People still see him. A rancher outside Shallowater claims his teenage son picked him up 2 summers ago. Said he didn't speak the whole ride. Just watched the sky fade to black, eyes flicking toward the rearview mirror every few seconds. The kid dropped him off near Muleshoe and turned back around. Swears his GPS started glitching. The temperature in the cab spiked to 112. When he got home, his back was covered in blisters, like he'd been lying in the sun for hours. Then there was the woman who called 911 last fall, screaming about a man who begged her not to let the sun touch him. She said his face was peeling, like old paint curling off a house. They found her. Car abandoned on the roadside, engine running, driver's door open. Inside was a smear of ash across the seat and a single boot print burned into the floor mat. No one's sure what he is. Some say he's cursed, some say he's undead. Others think he's a spirit that feeds on darkness and rides panic like a wave. One theory, if you can call it that, is that he was part of some old cult, the kind that believed the sun was evil and the West held salvation. A few people have dug up local legends about settlers who vanished chasing eternal dusk, or outlaws, who made pacts with shadow things in the dry gulches. But most folks just call him what he is, the hitchhiker who hates the sun. If you're ever driving west out of Lubbock and see a pale man in old boots standing by the road near sundown, keep driving. Don't slow down, don't make eye contact, and for God's sake, don't stop, because if the sun catches him while he's still in your car, he doesn't burn alone. It was the kind of heat that makes you mean. A dry, cracked, skin-peeling kind of heat that settled into Eagle Pass like a sickness in the lungs and never quite left. The sun bled into the desert all day, and by night, the wind carried dust, old sweat, and sometimes something else. Something colder, something like static. It began the way curses always do in quiet towns, slow and disbelieved. Whispers that got stuck in people's throats, until the phones started ringing. At first, no one thought much of it. A few calls here and there from an unlisted number, just a faint, strange noise on the other end. People blamed spam, Mexican carriers, interference from the Border Patrol towers. It was easy to ignore until you couldn't. The voice came next. It didn't sound Like a person exactly. It sounded like a voice underwater, or maybe underground, muffled and distorted like someone shouting from inside a concrete tank. A voice flattened by distance. Desperate. Male, maybe. Young, maybe not. Estoy debajo. Debajo del río. I'm underneath the river. It would say nothing else for days. Weeks, even. Then, one night, it changed. And that's when the dying started. The first one was Marta Jimenez, a housekeeper at La Quinta Inn. 46 years old, mother of 3, devout Catholic. She answered the call around 11:47 p.m. Her daughter said she looked dazed after hanging. Up. Walked outside barefoot. They found her the next morning, curled at the foot of the pedestrian bridge over the Rio Grande, eyes wide open, mouth stuffed with river silt. Her phone was found still ringing, still buzzing in her pocket. They say when the paramedics picked it up, it let out a deep, guttural gasp, like a man exhaling for the first time after drowning. Then it happened again. A trucker named Wesley Brantley picked up a hitchhiker west of town near the old cattle road. Said the guy never spoke, just sat there in the back seat, soaking wet. Brantley dropped him off near the river crossing and drove straight to the sheriff's station, white as bone. Couldn't stop talking about how the man left no footprints on the gravel. The next morning, Brantley's rig was found idling near the levee, lights on, cab empty. His phone was on the passenger seat. Call history showed a 38-minute call, outgoing, to a number with all zeros. The audio. Static. But if you slowed it down just enough, you could hear breathing. After that, things moved fast. The sheriff's department stopped answering midnight calls altogether. The radio station, Kiev 89.3, stopped broadcasting between 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. because the signal kept getting hijacked. Night DJs quit. One of them, Hector Ruiz, claimed something spoke through the speakers, even when the equipment was turned off. Said it told him it remembered drowning. Said it wanted to come back. Said it needed names. The weirdest part was how it chose its people. You had to be alone. The room, dark maybe. No television, no music, just silence and a screen. It didn't matter the model or the make, whether the phone was on silent or even off. It rang. It always rang. Some said it started, with a vibration, a low hum in your bones. Others said the phone didn't ring at all. It just lit up, and the voice was already speaking. Estoy atrapado. No hay luz. No hay arriba. Solo agua. Solo frío. Solo tú. I'm trapped. There's no light. No up. Only water. Only cold. Only you. By mid-July, people started doing strange things. A teacher at the middle school drove his car straight into the Rio Grande. Didn't even touch the brakes. His wife said he kept hearing a voice in his Bluetooth speaker, even when the engine was off. Said it was thanking him. Said it was so close. A teenage girl live-streamed herself sitting at the riverbank, earbuds in, smiling at first, then crying, then silent. The video was taken down. No one who watched it could explain why her eyes changed color halfway through the stream. And then there was the old story. The one nobody wanted to remember, but everyone suddenly did. Back in 1982, a detention center bus full of undocumented migrants went off the bridge at Eagle Pass during a storm. The brakes failed, or maybe the driver fell asleep. It plunged into the Rio Grande. 15 people drowned. 11 of the bodies were recovered. The rest were, well, somewhere. Some said they never left, that the static wasn't just a voice. It was a soul. Maybe more than one. Maybe something else. Something that had been buried under the river so long it forgot how to die right. Something that wanted to cross, but needed a host, or a voice, or a number. The Torres family was the last. Straw, young couple, newborn baby. They lived in a small stucco house just outside Camado. Quiet folks. One night, the husband, Miguel, left the baby monitor running and heard something strange. Not crying, not cooing, but whispering. In Spanish, repeating something over and over. "I know your name now." The child was fine, sound asleep. But the phone in the nursery had somehow dialed Miguel's number 3 times while he was in the kitchen. No fingerprints, no battery left. They moved the next day. Most people who get the call now, they don't talk about it. They just disappear. Or they go quiet, shaky, unplugged. They don't answer unknown numbers. Don't stay near the water after dark. They don't even say the name of the river anymore. Like saying it out loud might summon it. Eagle Pass is quieter now. Half the businesses closed. Cell towers blink in the distance, but no one trusts them. A few people still fish the river, but only in daylight and never alone. Because when the night rolls in and the wind shifts and the phones begin to buzz, there's something in that static. Something old, something angry, something that doesn't want to be forgotten. So, if your phone ever rings just after midnight, no name, no number, just a cold vibration and the echo of water, don't answer. Don't look at the screen. Don't speak. Don't listen, because the voice is listening back. And it's almost here. Some things in Texas aren't meant to be dug up. Not by historians, not by oilmen, not by time, and not by the tourists who come rolling through San Antonio with wide eyes, plastic spurs, and big gulps of tequila on the river walk. They come for history, they say, to remember the Alamo, even if they don't really know what happened there. They walk through that stone chapel with reverence, whispering under breath like it's a church, like ghosts can't hear whispers. But they can, especially that one. There's a bell that rings under the Alamo. Not part of the mission, not in the blueprints. Not a mechanical bell from some tower or museum display. No, this one's lower, deeper. It rings from underneath. No one can say exactly when it started. But the old-timers remember hearing about it from their abuelas, back before World War II, back when the plaza outside the Alamo was still dirt and dust. They said if you walked near the east wall after midnight, you might hear something. Not with your ears, exactly, but in the bones behind your eyes. A bell tolling once, then twice. Always in threes, and God help you if you followed the sound. The first recorded incident was in 1934. A woman named Isadora Petty, 32 years old, visiting from Kansas, walked barefoot into a downtown hotel lobby at 4 in the morning. Covered in dirt, humming what sounded like a Catholic funeral hymn. She couldn't remember her name, or where she'd been, but she kept whispering, "The bell's under the bones. I saw the cross. It was wrong side up." She died 3 days later of a seizure in a sanitarium. Her fingernails were packed with rich soil. Not from anywhere near San Antonio, but a match. Was later found in a prehistoric dig site in Veracruz, Mexico. Some say it's a coincidence, a delusion, mass suggestion. But ask the groundskeepers. Ask the people who clean up after the tourists, who see the quiet things, like fresh footprints in the gardens after the gates are locked, or small mounds of displaced soil by the eastern foundation, or fingernail scratches in the stone, new ones where no tours go. And then there's Raymond Chapa. Raymond was a veteran, ran a food cart 2 blocks off the Alamo, sold tacos to drunk frat boys and tour buses. Big laugh, bad knees, good heart. Everybody liked Ray. Until one summer, just before Fiesta Week, he started sleeping at his cart. Said he couldn't go home. Said the bell followed him. His niece caught him one night, curled under the counter, dirt smeared across his face like war paint. He told her something had rung from beneath the Alamo and that when he looked down through the storm drain near the cenotaph, he saw a light. A pale, flickering orange light, like torch fire, deep below. And then, a face. The face, he said, was smiling, but not with its mouth, with its eyes. He started digging behind his cart. Wouldn't stop. Dug through concrete, through gas lines. They had to detain him. He'd scratched his arms bloody, muttering about the chapel under the stone, the church that eats time. Said he had to get to the bell. 2 days later, they found him dead in his cell. Cause of death? Suffocation from soil, packed into his lungs like someone had buried him alive from the inside. After that, city officials tried to suppress the stories. No press releases, no ghost tours talking about the bell. But the ringing didn't stop. In fact, it got worse. Tourists started waking up in places they'd never been. One couple from Minnesota vanished from their hotel bed, found 2 hours later, barefoot and dazed, outside a church ruin 13 miles away. When police found them, they were kneeling in a patch of dirt, holding hands, eyes closed. They were murmuring in perfect Latin. Neither of them spoke Latin. A 10-year-old boy on a school field trip disappeared from the museum gift shop for 20 minutes. Found in a janitor's closet, nails torn, shirt inside out. Said he'd been talking to a man in robes who had no mouth. Said the man told him, "You've heard the call. You must ring it next." And then came the dreams. Hundreds of people, locals mostly, started reporting the same thing. A dream where they stood at the foot of a staircase made of bone and ash, spiraling down into the earth. At the bottom, a cracked stone chapel with blood-soaked pews and a bell made not of metal, but teeth. It rang when no one touched it. And every time it rang, something crawled a little closer from the farthest corner of the chapel. Something that grinned and shuffled and remembered you. These weren't just nightmares. These were memories, shared by strangers, identical in detail. A professor from UTSA collected the dream reports. She vanished in October 2019. Her laptop was found by the river. The only thing on the screen was a document titled 3 Bells, 3 Wakes, Third Coming. Every line in the file was just one sentence, repeated 1,837 times. He is under the Alamo, and he remembers the ones who listen. Tourism dropped that year. Officials blamed the heat, the economy, politics, but those who lived close to downtown started hearing it more and more. The tolling, the low, throat-deep sound that shook your breath, and the dreams changed. Now it wasn't just the chapel. Now there were people, dozens of them, standing in a line underground, each with eyes sewn shut and lips trembling, waiting their turn to ring the bell. And every time it rang, a new soul was taken, not dead, just rewritten, forgotten by family, erased from photos, but their faces sometimes turned up, in dreams, in flashbacks, in the mirror. You'd blink, and for just a second, you'd remember being someone else, a missionary, a soldier, a native priest, a gravedigger, a man trapped under a bell that rang only for the lost. San Antonio still looks normal by day. The Alamo still stands, stone firm and bright under the Texas sun. But walk by it at night, when the crowd is gone and the shadows pool in corners, and you might hear it, not in your ears, in your memory. A sound you never should have known. The bell, tolling once, then twice, then a third time. And when you wake up, if you wake up, you'll have dirt under your nails, a name on your tongue that isn't yours, and a craving to go back, to find it, to ring it, because once you've heard the bell beneath the Alamo, it's already inside you, and it's waiting for the next toll, the next memory to steal, the next soul to echo. Don't listen, don't follow, don't remember. San Angelo was the kind of town where things stayed stuck. Old tractors rusted where they died decades back. Faded Coca-Cola signs hung over diners that only served breakfast and the same 5 kinds of coffee. And the train yard, well, the train yard hadn't seen a real engine since 1972. The whole place had been locked up, welded shut, and left to rot under a sky that never quite got dark enough for stars. But she was still there. The first time Bobby Trent heard the singing, he was 9. It came through the slats of his bedroom window one August night, the kind of Texas night where the air tastes like dust and regret. He'd been lying in bed, clutching his stuffed armadillo and trying not to cry because his dad had yelled at him for spilling iced tea on the pickup's seat. And then, she sang. It was a lullaby. That much he knew. His mama used to hum something like it when she was half drunk and sweet. But this wasn't her song. It was older, slower, sad in a way a child could feel but never explain. He walked to the window, his feet barely touching the floor. Not sleepwalking, not awake either. Something in between. Out past the cottonwoods, over the cracked gravel road that led down to the old train yard, he saw a shadow. Not moving, just standing. And the voice came from there. Soft, like someone comforting the dead. He didn't remember falling asleep, but in the morning, his feet were dirty, and there was a single smudge of rust on his cheek, like a kiss from someone long gone. They say she appears more often in the summer. Maybe it's the heat. Maybe it's the way the air warps sound when the world bakes under that hard sun. Or maybe she likes the long days and short nights, when the veil between dream and waking thins like old cotton. The singing woman never screams, never wails. Her song isn't loud. It's low and broken and full of that deep, aching kindness that makes strong men cry and small children smile in their sleep. Sometimes she sings about stars, sometimes about rain. But the words are always half wrong, like she's remembering something from before language had rules, and if you listen too long, something inside you shifts. People change after they hear her. Take Sheriff Caleb Darnell. Big man. Didn't believe in ghosts or fairy tales or anything that couldn't be. Arrested. He laughed when a call came in from 2 teenagers who said they heard a lady crying lullabies near the fence behind the yard. Claimed she followed them, her feet not touching the ground. Caleb drove down there himself that night. Didn't come back until dawn, and when he did, he was different. Quit drinking, stopped talking much, started humming to himself sometimes, while he walked the perimeter of his property, like he was keeping something in instead of out. His daughter said he sat up in bed at night, eyes wide open, whispering, "She's so close now. She knows my name again." They buried him a year later. His body was found slumped against the chain-link fence that surrounds the train yard. No signs of trauma, just tear streaks on his face and a faint hum echoing from his phone's recorder app. A lullaby. Sweet, almost gentle. The locals say she was once a mother, maybe a woman waiting on a husband who never came home from the war, or a daughter who died on the tracks during a winter derailment. Some say she was a singer at the depot back when it was still running, who got her throat cut by a jealous lover in the baggage room. She bled out onto the rails, humming as she died, like she was trying to soothe herself back into the dark. Whatever she was, she stayed. Now the train yard is chained off, but that doesn't stop the sound. It drifts through the fence like mist, follows people home, comes out of vents and drains and broken radios, always at night, always when you're alone, always just out of reach. Once, a little girl named Ivy wandered out of her house at 2:12 a.m. Her parents found her 2 blocks away, barefoot, walking straight toward the yard with her arms out like she was reaching for someone. Her nightgown was stained with rust. In her hand, a broken pocket watch she'd never seen before. It ticked for 6 seconds before stopping. Another time, a man named Darren Hogue drove his truck straight into the west gate at 3:09 a.m. Full speed. The engine was still running when they found him. He was unconscious but alive. When he woke, he had no memory of who he was, only a soft humming sound in his ears. He never remembered his name, but he remembered her. "She sings to the lonely ones," he told a reporter. "She waits for people who don't know they're waiting. She fills the cracks. Nobody sees her face. That's the worst part. She's always there, just beyond the last row of boxcars, or behind the dead oak tree near the signal light. Just out of the camera's view. You'll feel her breath before you see her. Cold, like autumn sneaking in under the door. And if you see her shadow, it's already too late. They say the singing gets louder when you stop wanting to leave, that it builds inside you, note by note, until it's all you can hear, until your own thoughts start humming in harmony, until the dirt feels like a cradle, until you forget where your real bed is. There are records, police reports, missing person cases that never close. The city files them under unresolved nocturnal disturbances. But the people who live there know better. They don't go near the train yard after dusk. They don't let their kids hum lullabies. They don't keep old clocks. And if they hear singing, real soft, like someone crooning to a crib that isn't there, they close their windows and pray. Because the singing woman is always just out of sight. But she's never out of reach. And her songs are meant for someone. Maybe for you. They come out after sunset, just as the heat finally slips from the rocks and the sky turns the color of dying coals. Terlingua, that dust-bitten ghost of a town sprawled out in the Chihuahuan desert like it forgot to die proper, has always had stories. It's built on bones, miners, drifters, runaways, people who didn't fit anywhere else, and every single one of them heard about the white dogs, not strays, not coyotes, not hallucinations brought on by tequila or heat stroke. Just 3 white dogs, always 3. Long-legged, silent, moving like smoke across the dirt trails that lace through the desert. Big. Too big to be normal dogs, and too quiet. They don't pant, they don't bark, they don't even make the sand crunch beneath their paws. They just are. No one sees them during the day, and no one ever sees them together until it's too late. Back in 1991, a woman named Ellie Ortega ran a little antique shop off the main road. Lived alone. People said she used to be a dancer in Juarez before her husband died in a fire. She kept to herself, mostly. Fed a lot of strays. Then one night she was seen outside town near the old mine trail, kneeling with a plate of leftover pork ribs. A white dog was watching her from the mesquite brush, eyes glowing like coins in a flashlight. She set down the food and backed away, didn't say a word, just smiled like she'd heard a joke only she understood. Next morning, Ellie was sitting on her porch, pale, shaking. Her eyes were wet, and her fingers were covered in what looked like ash. She said she saw her husband. He stood beside the dog. Same shirt he was buried in. Same ring she kept in her drawer. He didn't speak, just nodded once. She told that story exactly one time. Then she vanished. Door wide open, bed untouched, coffee still warm. Only clue was a handprint on her porch railing. Small, too small to be hers, and white hair caught in the screen door. Thick, coarse, and warm to the touch. The sheriff called it a disappearance, but folks around Terlingua knew better. They knew the dogs had come again, and someone had tried to touch them. Feeding them lets you see someone you've lost. That's the rule. A glimpse, a goodbye, maybe a mercy, but touching them, that's not allowed, because the dogs aren't dogs. They're something else. Some say they were sentinels once, guardians of the dead, left behind by an older people who carved messages into rock and vanished before the Spanish ever saw the Rio Grande. Others say they were born in the mines, formed from salt and soot and sorrow, molded by the death rattles, of men crushed under rock, and some say they're part of the desert itself, that the desert dreams, and the dogs are the teeth of that dream. Whatever they are, they know things. In 2004, a teenager named Manny Velasquez dared his friend to feed them, left out a bowl of beans and chorizo where the sand turns red near Mule, Ear Springs. They waited in the truck, windows up, engine off. At 12:37 a.m., one of the dogs appeared, then another, then the third. No sound, no wind, just those long, pale bodies moving like dancers. Manny got out of the truck, just a few steps. His friend screamed for him to stop, but he stood frozen, staring at something behind the dogs. He cried, fell to his knees, said it was his sister, Rosa, drowned when he was 5. He said she looked older now, taller, but her eyes were the same. Manny never touched them. He said he thought about it just for a second, but something in the dog's stare told him what would happen. He got back in the truck and didn't sleep for 3 days. His friend, Leo, he didn't come back the next night, but they found Leo's sneakers at the base of the mesa a week later. Clean. Too clean, like someone had just set them there. And nearby, paw prints. 3 sets. Perfect. Pressed into the rock like it was soft clay. People say if you touch one of them, if you even brush their fur, you disappear. Not just gone, but undone. Like you were never part of this world to begin with. Your name gets forgotten. Your photos fade. You become a gap in the memories of everyone who loved you. A silence. A blank spot on the map of someone's heart. But some come close. Desperate ones. Widows. Fathers. Children. Because the thing is, the white dogs only appear when you need them. When the grief is raw. When your chest aches from the weight of something unfinished. When you've run out of prayers and hope and tears and there's nothing left but want. That's when they show up. And they wait. They wait to see what you'll do. Sometimes people bring offerings. A crust of bread. A ribbon from a baby's. Shoe. A pocket knife that once belonged to someone long gone. And if the offering is true, if the pain is real, they'll grant you a vision. You'll see the one you lost. Just don't touch them. Don't let your fingers graze that snowy fur. No matter how badly you want to hold on. No matter how much your voice trembles with the name you haven't spoken aloud in years. Because if you touch them, you'll vanish. No scream. No second chance. You'll just be part of the desert. One more whisper on the wind. One more grain of red sand in the tracks they leave behind, and maybe, one night, someone will feed the dogs and see you, standing just behind them, silent, smiling, almost real. So if you're ever walking the trails near Terlingua, and the night grows too quiet, if you feel watched but not threatened, if you see 3 pale shapes moving through the brush like ghosts on patrol, don't run, don't call out, don't offer what you can't afford to lose, and above all, don't touch the white dogs. It showed up on a Thursday. That's important somehow. Not a Friday night or a Sunday morning, not one of those days with history or magic behind it. Just a plain old Thursday in late October. Leaves still clinging to the trees like tired hands, and the cold hadn't bitten the bones of East Texas yet. The kind of day that feels gray no matter what the sky looks like. It sat where nothing had ever been before. Just past mile marker 73 on County Road 17, tucked between 2 stretches of pine so thick they pressed like closing hands. Folks passed by there every day. Delivery trucks, sheriff's cruisers, farm boys in lifted pickups. They knew that road like they knew the backs of their own dry, sun-cracked hands. But that Thursday, there it was. A diner. Chrome shell, red. Vinyl booths visible through the big glass windows, a flickering neon sign that said, Millie's in bubblegum cursive. And it was open. You might think someone would have noticed a new building going up out there. But no one did. Not the mailman. Not the locals who hunted deer in those woods every season for 30 years. And when the county clerk checked the permits, there weren't any. No record of zoning, construction, not even a power hookup. But the lights were on. The parking lot, fresh asphalt, still hot beneath the boots, had no oil stains. No leaves, nothing. Clean as sin. The first one to go in was Tommy Greeley. 17, drove his daddy's truck too fast, chewed too loud, and didn't believe in anything except girls and football. He saw the diner around 10:30 at night on his way back from dropping off a girl who wouldn't kiss him. Hunger made the decision. Later, folks would say he looked wrong when he came back. Eyes glassy, pale, talking soft like a man who saw the inside of a tornado and liked what he found. "Best damn cherry pie I ever had," he kept saying. "And the waitress knew my name. Didn't even ask. People figured it was a prank. Viral. Marketing. A stunt. That's how the world works now. Nothing can just be. It has to be for something." But folks kept stopping, and they kept coming back with stories. About the pie. About the coffee, black and smooth as wet stone. About how familiar it all felt. Like walking into a place you used to dream about. And the menu. Always laminated. No stains, no fingerprints, but no food, just names. At the top, etched in careful handwriting, was the phrase, "Tonight's specials." Below it, names. Real ones, local ones, first and last. Names of people still living, and names of people who'd been dead for years. You'd find your old high school teacher listed between a long-haul trucker and a girl who drowned in the lake back in '92. You'd find the name of your sister, your neighbor, your dentist, your own name, sometimes with a date beside it, sometimes with a price. The waitress, Millie, or so her tag said, was always friendly. Middle-aged, blonde maybe, or brunette, depending on the light. Eyes too green, smile too wide. She didn't blink much, and she never answered questions. If you asked her about the menu, she just said, "It's what the cook's making tonight." There was no cook. No one ever saw one, anyway. But orders still came. Always hot, always perfect. A slice of pie that tasted like summers you never had. A grilled cheese that made you cry for reasons you couldn't name. Pancakes that smelled like your grandmother's kitchen at dawn, even if your grandmother died before you were born. People kept eating, and the names kept changing. A man named Perry Thompson, retired, diabetic, widowed, stopped in one night for a milkshake. Found his wife's name on the menu, Kathleen Thompson. Died in 2003. Cancer. He ordered her. Just to see, Millie brought him a glass of sweet tea with 2 lemon wedges. Kathleen's favorite. He died in his sleep that night. Smiling. No signs of struggle. Just a note on the nightstand that read, "Thank you." But not all the endings were that neat. Mara DeWitt, age 23, went in one night and saw her brother's name. Died overseas. She refused to order, just drank water. Left shaking. Next morning, she was found walking down the road barefoot, muttering songs her brother used to sing when they were kids. She doesn't speak anymore, just stares. And then there was Reggie Malone, town council, loud talker. Saw his name listed with the words, "Rare, limited time," in bold letters. He laughed, said, "Hell, I ain't even hungry," and walked out. They found him in his garage the next day. No signs of violence, just a spoon in his hand. Mouth open, tongue missing. By now, the diner's become a kind of legend. People drive in from counties away just to see it. Most don't find it. They say the road bends different, that the woods change, that the diner only appears when it wants to. You can't track it. You can't photograph it. The neon sign won't show on camera. Your GPS dies. Your watch stops, ticking, But if you're driving a lonely road, especially on a Thursday, and you see a silver diner glowing like a cigarette tip in the dark, don't stop. Don't look for your name on the menu, because once you do, it doesn't matter if you order or not, the cook's already started. It always begins with the thunder. Not the regular kind that rolls in lazy from the west, dragging a storm behind it like a drunk dragging his bad decisions. No, this thunder comes all at once. Crack, like God snapping his fingers too close, to your ear. It starts at exactly 9:12 p.m. on June 21st every year without fail, and it hits like a punch in the chest. A dry night turns wet, fast. The rain slaps down with angry hands, and just for a second you can smell something strange on the wind. Burnt hair, maybe. Or electricity. Or the moment before something terrible happens. Most folks in Nacogdoches don't talk about it. Don't need to. They just know. The week leading up to June 21st, people start canceling plans. Stores close early. Gas stations turn off their lights. Kids don't ride their bikes. Teenagers stop sneaking out. The town goes still. Heavy. Like a stage set just before the curtain rises on a play everyone's already seen too many times, and they all lock their doors. It's not superstition. It's survival. Because if you're out when the thunder hits, if you're outside when the rain starts, you become part of it. You repeat. Every year, someone forgets, or pretends not to believe, or wants to be brave, and every year they vanish. But you still see them. They show up again during the night. At first it's just the storm. Thunder, rain, lightning so bright it blinds through your eyelids. Then the power cuts. Not flickers, cuts. Street lamps, porch lights, televisions, everything. Dead. And then the screaming starts, always the same. Male voice, rough and panicked. "Let me out!" Then a second scream, higher, sharper. A woman. Just one word. "Stop!" Then silence. Except the storm and the music box. Nobody knows where the sound comes from, but it's there. A tinny little jingle, faint at first, then louder. Not a real tune, just the kind of music box sound you'd expect to find in the bottom of a burned-out nursery, still turning after everything else is ash. Some say it comes from the woods outside town. Others swear it's under the old courthouse, sealed in the dirt. A few think it's in the walls of the Henderson house on Pine Street, where the woman in the window waits. She's always there. Every June 21st, sometime between 10 o'clock and 10:30 p.m., the rain will ease just enough, and if you look up at the second-floor window of that rotting colonial house with the ivy-choked fence, you'll see her, pale, bare-armed, hair hanging down like a wet veil, and she's watching. Not moving. Just watching. They say she blinks in reverse. That her mouth doesn't open when she screams. It unhinges. That her eyes aren't eyes at all but holes, deep and flickering with stormlight. No one gets close enough to know for sure. Because if you try, if you step onto that porch while the storm is still raging, you won't come back the same, or you won't come back at all. Ask Hal Brewster, used to be the night janitor at the high school. Laughed about it every June. Called it Hillbilly Groundhog Day. Said it was all in people's heads. Then, one year, he stayed out. Parked his truck near the cemetery with a six-pack and a flashlight. Dared the night to do its worst. They found his boots the next morning, full of water, standing upright in the middle of the road like he stepped right out of them. Hal never came back. But that same year, people started seeing a new figure in the repeat, just for a second, behind the woman in the window, something hulking and soaked and barefoot, standing at her shoulder like it was waiting for a cue. People try to record it. The night, set up cameras, but nothing ever works. Batteries die. Files corrupt. Live streams glitch and crash. The night protects itself. And worst of all, The town doesn't remember afterward. Not really. You wake up on June 22nd with a headache, maybe a cold sweat. You notice strange watermarks on the carpet, mud on the windowsill, a missing time slot on your security feed. You think it was just a dream, a nightmare brought on by something you ate, maybe, but somewhere, buried beneath, the forgetfulness, you know? You remember the pattern, the thunder, the screaming, the music box, the reset. Because it always ends the same way. At exactly 3:03 a.m., the storm dies. The clouds vanish like they were never there. The street lamps buzz back to life. Radios stutter. Phones reboot. And every door that was locked now has a single, muddy handprint on it. Some say the night is a punishment. Others say it's a ritual, a loop that can't be broken. One old man in the nursing home used to be a preacher before the fire took his church, claims it was a bargain made long ago. Blood. For peace, he mutters when the nurses aren't listening. One night for the rest of the year. One night, and she stays put. No one asks who she is. No one wants to know. But if you're ever in Nacogdoches on June 21st, if you hear thunder crack like the sky's been ripped, if your power goes out and the air smells of ozone and rot, do what the locals do. Lock your doors, cover your windows, don't look at the house on Pine Street, and for the love of whatever still listens, don't listen to the lullaby, because the night doesn't. Just repeat, it remembers.